Our very first lesson this morning is about Jacob and Jacob's vision from God. Today on the feast of St. Michael and all angels, the idea of vision and the call of God is right there in our readings. Jacob is on the run, a reminder of what Jacob did. Jacob duped his father, he betrayed his brother, they got very mad, so he had to leave. And while he's on the run, thinking he had lost everything, thinking he had no power, no authority, no real place to go, God meets him. God calls him. God shows him a vision of what it is that Jacob can do. Jacob thought he was at his lowest point, and God met him there and gave him a vision of heaven, a vision of what could be, and called Jacob into that vision. Jacob in that moment discovers that God's working in the world all the time, and he is part of that work. We too are called to be participants in God's work. And that is what stewardship is really all about. Now, we've heard that word stewardship many, many different times. Stewardship, however, is not about just giving away our stuff. That's not it. Stewardship leans into the idea that God's work is constant and continuous. God's work began before us. God's work will continue after us. And we are participants. We're asked, invited, called to be participants in God's work in the world, God's dream for this world, God's hope for this world. From the beginning of time, manifest through Christ, and now working through us, God is expanding the work. Now, I've been speaking over these last weeks and months about discipleship, hitting discipleship pretty clearly because our gospel has been hitting discipleship very clearly. Whether it's Peter being pulled out of the boat to walk on the water, Jesus committing to follow and find that one lost sheep, Peter's profession of faith, and then the call multiple weeks to forgive again and again. That's a hard one. I've heard from many of you about that forgiveness thing. That's hard. In each story, we are called into a way of being that asks for our participation, that asks for us not to just be observers or to sit on the sidelines or to think well, but to actually get in the game, put our hands and feet out in the world to actually take action. Today, when Jesus sees Nathanael says, "How do you know me?" And Jesus' answer is, "I see you." We might, regardless of where we come from and what we're doing in our lives right now, wonder if God sees us. And the truth is that God sees each and every one of us. And God calls us, as we are, with the gifts we have been given, to participate. We are gifted. We are called to steward and manage and to administer and to share the gifts that God has given us. And our stewardship is really about sharing in God's important work through Christ. Everything we do is stewardship. That's really the key. Every action we take, every decision we make, every use of our gifts is about stewardship. And the real question is, are we seeking as best we can to align ourselves with God's purpose, to align ourselves with God's work in the world right now? We have come to a big moment in our life together, a moment I've been dreaming about for over 7 years, a moment that lots and lots of people have been working toward for a long time. We have come to a historic moment in the life of our church where we are launching a new future. We are launching a campaign for both annual and capital projects that will help to fund the future of our church together. If we know you, and we try to know you, and we try to know all of you, you're going to get some packets in the mail this week that is going to explain everything about what we have on the docket, everything that we've been dreaming up, everything that we have planned. And I hope that you will open yourselves up to know that your gifts are being called upon, that God sees you and is asking you to share your gifts and participate in the work that he is doing in the world. Now, there are two parts of what we launched today. The first is our annual giving. Annual giving, that's what we're used to. Every fall we talk about the idea of making a pledge to the church to support our annual mission. This is the stuff that happens day to day. This is the work that we know. Whether we are here learning, praying together, caring for one another, serving people outside these walls, this is what keeps the ship going. This is what keeps the wheels turning. Annual giving is a spiritual discipline. Annual giving is our commitment of what we value far more than we should, our money. And we share it together, we pool it together, and when we do so, when we give generously, we change who we are. We transform our spirits as disciples of Jesus, and when all of that is shared, we get to do more and make a bigger impact out in the world. We are still doing that this year. That kind of spiritual discipline is still what we're asking you to commit to. And in addition to that, we have a second initiative. This second initiative is taking a look at who we are on this physical campus and setting ourselves up for a bright future. There are two big initiatives happening at the same time, and one you've been watching for years now, the development to the north of our church property. This development that we have leased, that's giving us a huge amount of income, and that income, we are sending the majority of it outside into the community. We want the majority of what we are making from that land lease to go impact the world for good as a witness to the faith that we have in God's work and in the hope that we have for the world around us. That's a big commitment that we are making. Rather than keeping it for ourselves, we're giving most of it away. But then comes the second initiative. And that is taking care of this building that we love. This is the place we gather as a community, and the irony is there isn't a lot of space for us to gather as a community. We have good worship space and we have some decent learning space, and that's mostly what our building was made for. And so now we want a hard reset of the buildings we use that help nurture and support the church community that we love. Now, there is no way for me to explain everything that we have planned in the next 5 or 8 minutes. And so here's my ask. Beginning today and for the next 6 to 7 weeks, we're going to be talking about this campaign. I want you to open yourselves up to learn about all of the thoughtfulness that has gone on to what we hope to do for the future of our church. But there are a few ideas I want to make sure I plant today. That first rests in our community. We have trouble seeing one another in one moment, in one space, ever. And that's not good enough. We need space that allows us to come together and build our relationships. Yes, it's great to worship together, and yes, it's great to learn together, but we need to just spend time together. We need to deepen our relationships and our friendships together, because it's through those relationships that we make the biggest impact out in the world. And we are committing to being growth-oriented in this project. Now, it is no secret that churches all over the country, all over the world, struggle to continue to keep members engaged. At St. Michael, we are not having that problem, and we should be so grateful for that. We are continuing to engage new people all the time. We are continuing to grow, and that growth is because our community is strong. And to keep our community as strong as we can, we need to make sure our building supports the people we want to be. God is calling us to make a difference in the world, and by making sure we can gather together and yoke ourselves to one another, we can ensure that the impact we make is as big as possible. So in your bulletins today, there is information. After the service, there will be a reception, and there is opportunities for you to come and talk to us every day. We'd love to talk to you more about this. But it's a big campaign, bigger than anything that we've done. The goal of this campaign to help shape our buildings and make them smarter is $60 million. And I'm very pleased to tell you that of the people who have already jumped in to give and support this campaign and kick it off, we've raised over 50 of that already. We can finish this plan. We can complete this dream. We can remake our campus for the future. Giving is what I'm asking you to do today in multiple different levels. Giving is what I'm asking you to consider in a deep way, because I love you enough to ask. Annually, it is a spiritual discipline that is good for our souls. We need to give and give enough to feel the gift. This is not NPR or your university, although I love them. This is about your spiritual life, your soul. You need to give enough to feel that gift. And the capital ask is a gift above and beyond that. Why? Because we can. Because we have been given everything we need. And if we have the courage to not be afraid of the world, if we have the courage to realize that through Christ we have nothing to fear, then we can accomplish anything we wish to do to build God's kingdom. I want you to stretch your idea of what giving really means, to dig deep, to not just think of it as giving away your stuff, but to think of it as participating in God's sacred work that began before us and will continue well beyond us. Today, we celebrate who we are and we celebrate who we are becoming. Today, we celebrate our future. I want you to find people wearing name tags with the big red chapel doors on them because they are part of the leadership team that is excited about what we are doing. I want you to find clergy to ask questions. I want you to find me and come talk to us so that we can explain how excited we are about the future of our church. Like I said, I could talk for another hour or two, but I'm going to sit down. And so I want to leave you with one simple idea that shifts who we are from here on. It's our turn. It's our turn to participate in God's work in a very deeply committed way. I want you to hear me that what we are doing today is never about budgets and buildings first. It is always about you. God is calling you. God sees you. God has given you gifts, and God is calling you to share those gifts with the world. This campaign is about everyone who has helped build St. Michael to this point. And this campaign is about all those people who have not yet joined our community, all those people who are not even born yet. We are part of this big relay race of God's arc of salvation in the world. And we've been handed the baton in the middle of this race, and now it's our time to run. And as we run this leg of the race, we are preparing ourselves to pass the baton off to those who will come after us. What we are doing now is a sacred mission to participate in God's work in the world. It's our turn to commit to building the future of our church. It's our turn to help build the kingdom of God right here, right now. It's our turn. Because when God calls St. Michael says yes. Amen.